Peace, 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 peace. It is your sister Roo and MaWu Lisa Temple, beautiful upstate New York, Hudson Valley, and it is Saturday. How do you know? Because it is time for book review unread with Nick and Roo, and we are here and we are excited. When I say excited, we are excited on this beautiful gray day. I always say the gray days, the great ones to pull out a book. So for all those who's sitting around someplace where it's gray, no reason not to have a book out unless you are what? Hanging out with us. So, like I said, we are here today with Unread. It is Saturn Day. We are excited. We have great books to bring to you. Thank you for all of those who are coming back. Thank you to those who are new to this station. If you are, please make sure that you follow Mr. Westbrooks and then you head on over and follow Mawulisatemple. We are excited to have you. So I'm going to open the floor and just say, Nick, tell us how you're doing. Tell us what's going on. And you know what? You're going first this week, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. It's only right. It's only right that I go first, because I gotta set the stage and warm it up for you, because mine is going to be short and sweet. I'm going to be in and out, but I'll get to that in a minute. I'll go ahead and tell people about how I'm feeling. So all is well is all with me. We were just talking about offline before we went live about, just how tired I've been the last couple of weeks. And I agree with you about burning the candle on both ends. It is a busy time of the year for me. We're in the last couple of weeks of the school year, getting ready to graduate these seniors, a lot of senior activities going on. So I've been busy with that, been busy with my studies outside of that, getting ready for my numerology of Juneteenth presentation, doing study for that, doing what I do with DJ the Money Coach, Family Finance Friday, Zanzibar presentations. So yes, it's definitely been busy. I've been tired from that. And then, we were talking about the weather also. So layer the rain and the gray on top of that too. And yeah, I've definitely been tired the last couple of weeks, but slept in today, got some rest, got my energy together for this exciting episode 28 of Unread Book Review.
Yes.
So, yeah. So yep. So I'm ready to get into it. And if I'm correct, this is the first episode for June. Yes, it is. It's the first episode of June. And we're unofficially in summertime, but next week we'll be getting into the actual summertime cosmically and astronomically. But I heard that I'm going first. And a shout out to Fee Flowers. Thank you for tuning in with the live. And I guess I'll go ahead and set it off then.
Well, you know what? I would love for you to do for us. Give us some numbers for today, Nick. What we got going on numerology wise?
Okay, well, let me go. I'm gonna go to the Star 8 app. So today is June 14th. It's the number 14 day on the calendar. 1 and 4 equals 5. And universally, when we add up the month, the day, and the year, it is a 3 universal day. So it's an expressive day. It's a communicative day. It's a day, and I'm going to read from Lloyd Strayhorn's forecast here. It's a day likely to be filled with activities of one kind or another, be they social events, parties, and other related activities. That's the 5 and the 3 energy, both the 5 and the 3 energy, because the 3 and the 5 are both social expressive numbers. And we're also in the month of June. June is the 6th month, and it's the 6th universal month, which is also a socialite number, a frequency to be outgoing and to be magnetic towards people and attract people and attention towards you. So it'll be in your best interest to be out and about today for the purpose to mix and mingle and establish important connections that may prove helpful at some point later on. At the same time, today's 24-hour cycle also warns against going to excess or extreme in any way, shape, or form. That's the challenging side of the 3 and 5 is overdoing, doing too much.
Yes,
and,
yes.
and that's exactly what we were just talking about.
And that's exactly what we were talking about. Thank
burning
you
the
so
candle
much
on both
for that.
ends, doing too much movement, so we don't strain ourselves and strain our nerves and strain our mental energy. So failing to do so may be a drain on your nerves as well as your pocketbook. And astrologically, Pisces, Sagittarius, and those born on the 3rd, 12th, 21st, and the 30th of the month are likely to be the most social animals in the group today.
All right, all right. See, I needed that so people would see we are always trying to keep things in line. And even when we don't, they line up naturally. So what we'll be sharing with you today, again, you know, we don't consult on our books, but man, do they ever always come together and include in astrologically. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to Feet Flowers for checking in. Yes, yes. And don't do too much.
That's right.
Absolutely. Don't do too much, for sure. Well, Nick, the floor is yours. I'm ready to hear about this book. Break it on down. What you got for us this week?
Okay, so I'm bringing fiction today, and this is a book that has never been read. It is on my list. It's been on my list for at least 3 or 4 years now. It's a book that I received in a box in a collection when I was starting my new classroom, my new school, transitioning from my previous school to my new school. I got a bunch of books to my classroom to start my classroom library, and this is one of them. And as you see in the title, the book is called A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines. It's a novel. And like I mentioned, I received this book at the school. And interestingly enough, one of my colleagues at the school, not instructional, not a teacher, her son is in college, and he was reading this book for his composition class in college. So she was actually reading it with him, and she really enjoyed it. And I just thought that the title was very provocative, very, very interesting. That's what drew me to this book and what motivated me to add it to my list, my reading list. And I'm pretty sure, I think this book will be on the queue or on the agenda for this summer. You know, this summer's reading. But just to tell you a little bit about the book before I get into the plot summary of it, which I'll read to you. The book was published in 1993. It's a little over 250 pages, 30 chapters. And I'll save that part for the end. But I'll go ahead and read to you what the description says. And I'll also tell you some information about the author and what I'll be looking forward to specifically as I'm reading this book this summer. And this book, apparently it's a pretty popular book, but I wasn't familiar with it. And it's won awards. It's been a part of Oprah's book club list. And at the top of it, on the back cover, it says it was the winner of the National Book Critics Circle Award for Fiction. And the Boston Globe says A Lesson Before Dying reconfirms Ernest J. Gaines' position as an important American writer. So what is A Lesson Before Dying is about? It's set in a small Cajun community in the late 1940s. Jefferson, a young black man, is an unwitting party to a liquor store shootout in which 3 men are killed. The only survivor, he is convicted of murder and sentenced to death. Grant Wiggins, who left his hometown for the university, has returned to the plantation school to teach. As he struggles with his decision whether to stay or escape to another state, his aunt and Jefferson's godmother persuade him to visit Jefferson in his cell and impart his learning and his pride to Jefferson before his death. In the end, the two men forge a bond as they both come to understand the simple heroism of resisting and defying the unexpected. Ernest J. Gaines brings to this novel the same rich sense of place, the same deep understanding of the human psyche, and the same compassion for a people in their struggle that have informed his previous highly praised works of fiction. So Mr. Gaines has a few other books that he's published, which I'll share before I go to my questions and reflections and some information about him. So it looks like he's published a few other books. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 other books. Gathering of Old Men, the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, In My Father's House, Bloodline, Of Love and Dust, Catherine Cormier, Mozart and Leadbelly, and The Tragedy of Brady Sims. Now, Ernest J. Gaines was born on a plantation in Point Coupe Parish near New Roads, Louisiana, which is the Bayonne of all his fictional works. He was writer in residence emeritus at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. In 1993, he received the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation Fellowship for his lifetime achievements. In 1996, he was named, this is some French words here, so I'll try my best with this, not to mess this up, but Chevalier de l'Ordre des Arts et des Lettres, one of France's highest decorations, and he died in 2019. Now, as I was looking up the book to put the information in the link where you can purchase it in the description, I also learned that A Lesson Before Dying was adapted into a film also that came out in 1999. So the 1999 film adaptation stars Don Cheadle, Mekhi Phifer, and Cicely Tyson. So I didn't know anything about this book. I didn't know anything about the movie either. So that might be something that I have to do also, is watch the movie after I read the book. Now, since this is a book that I haven't read before, I don't know anything aside from what I just shared with you, what I just read with you. Here are a couple of questions and points that I look forward to as I'm reading this book. One question that I expect or anticipate is what did Jefferson learn from Grant? The title is called A Lesson Before Dying. So what was the lesson? And was there only one lesson, or were there multiple lessons? Was Jefferson resistant? Was he hesitant? Was he apprehensive towards opening up to Grant Wiggins? What was the dynamic in their relationship between these two men? At the start, when Grant first started visiting Jefferson in prison, to, however the story ends, or whenever their last meeting was. So we got the setting. So we got the time period and the geographical setting of the book. It's the 1940s, the late 1940s, before the Civil Rights Movement, and it's in Louisiana. So I'm also wondering what was the social and political setting of that time. So what was going on in the 1940s in Louisiana, or that specific part of Louisiana? So I'll be interested in finding that out, either through studying the history or just through the commentary and the plot of the novel. Another question that I have, just connecting this novel to another novel that I read multiple times. This question is comparing the character of Jefferson to another character that I read in another book from actually a similar time period. The books were published in different time periods. So this book was published in the 90s, but the setting of the book that I'm comparing this to, that takes place in the 1950s. And actually, when I was taking African American literature in college with Dr. Greg Hampton, he shared that this era of the 1950s, with these novels coming out, this was referred to as the protest era. So I'm referring to the protest era novel of Native Son by Richard Wright. And my question is Jefferson an archetype of Bigger Thomas from Native Son, being that they're both sentenced to death. They're both on death row. They're both in prison for different crimes, though. Bigger Thomas for murdering the white woman of the boss that he was working for, and Jefferson for murdering someone in the shootout, or being accused of murdering someone in the shootout during the liquor store robbery, or whatever the scenario was. So I'm wondering if Bigger Thomas and Jefferson are archetypes of one another. What are the parallels between those two characters? Like, what connections am I able to make between that novel and this one? Published in different time periods. Lesson Before Dying, published in the 90s. Native Son, published in the 50s.
Yes.
And what similarities exist between Grant Wiggins and Jefferson? Grant Wiggins, educated man, an educator. Jefferson is in prison. Now, did they start on the same path? Even though they seem diametrically opposite based on their positions in the plot, do they have anything in common? Either in their background, either in their personalities, aside from them both being men. And another question I have is, how did Grant Wiggins evolve or change as a result of forming this bond with Jefferson? Compare Grant Wiggins from their first meeting to the end of the novel. I'll be interested to see that. And the last question, and one of my favorite things and characteristics that I always look for when I'm reading a novel, is the universal lesson or theme. So what universal lessons or themes can readers gain from this book? So we may not relate to the plot, we may not relate to the time period, but the lessons or those themes or those takeaways that can be applicable to other or various areas of life and various groups of people, ages, races, backgrounds. That's what I'll be looking for as I read this book. So again, this is my offering. I forgot to put the banner up, but I'll put it up there. A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines.
Yes. Definitely sounds amazing. Sounds amazing. Sounds amazing. So, as you were sharing that, and again, thank you for sharing that. That's not one that I've read. I have heard of it, but I have not read it. And I don't own that one, as a matter of fact. So that might have to go on my to buy list or to look in my library stacks, because we always know the library does what? Give away books, people. Get out there, get those books. Give those books a loving home. But anyway, so yeah, I have not read that one, but I'm very interested in some of the same questions that you have. And even more so, what popped out to me was the publishing dates. One being published so close to the time of what was actually going on versus writing from a place where you can look backwards at things. You know what I mean? Because when you're looking backward at things, you can romanticize stuff a lot more than you can as you're going through it in the midst of things. So I'd be very anxious and interested to know, how those things difference in the story and how they different in the telling of the stories. One being very raw and in the now, and one being a reflection of something that happened at a different time period where things, mentalities and other are supposed to be different.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely looking forward to that. Now, you said that there was a young lady that you were she was reading it with her son. Did they ever give you any feedback on what they thought about it?
I mean, they didn't go into specifics. They just told me that they really enjoyed it and I need to read it. They
Okay. Hey,
recommended it.
listen,
Yeah.
listen, that is enough sometimes. Everything, we do this show. And again, thank you everyone for being with us. This is your first time. Welcome. If it's more than your first time, welcome back. Keep on coming, tell somebody, share, like, comment, all that good stuff. And don't forget to share with us your favorite books as well. But what we tell people is when we bring these books, they're just reminded that there are books out there. We know that we have a lot of people that read low key, high key, whatever, but at the same time, we read a lot of the same stuff over and over and over again. So it's nice to have, a variety of books that we can pull from. And like you said, things that we can then take from them and be applicable to the lives that we're living now, lessons and things of the such. So I'm very grateful for this offering, and it sounds intriguing. Anything about dying, I'm always there for that one. So
Whoa. Well, that sounds a little dark there.
you know what? It got a little dark for a while there, but a lesson before dying, I'm really interested because working in senior care for 20 some odd years, I've heard a lot of lessons before dying. I've heard a lot of older people talk about some of the things that have gone on in their lives when they were young. Not just regrets, but just memories and, of how things used to be, shows us how it shaped and mold who they are, as the people laying there on their dying beds at the same time. So, I'd be interested to know what lesson it was and how it impacted the person telling and how it impacted the person receiving. So definitely I look forward to hearing what you have to say about adding that to your summary. And see, anybody that don't know, Nick and I, we have this thing with these books now. Oh man, I tell you, the man can read so fast. He can take in so much. But I know I won't be able to read it, add it to my summer list because I already have a summer list that is stacking. So I won't be able to add it, but I look forward to hearing about it in the fall when we come back and you start telling us about all the wonderful books that you read. So I'm excited about that. Was there anything else you wanted to add? Does anybody in the comments have anything? Has anybody read this book? I don't know who we got in there. I can't see from my side.
No,
But
we just got one. We just got one on one.
Okay.
right now. So
Okay.
yeah, we
Well,
keep it rolling.
listen, you already know. I'm sitting over here and I'm saying to myself, I said to myself when we because even though we don't share the books always that we're gonna bring to the table, we start thinking about these things early on. Now they can switch up at the last minute and we can grab something else off the shelf, but for the most part, we kind of know the kind of things we want to bring in terms of season, current events, things like that. So my offering this week is kind of controversial. And and I've been known to say a controversial word or two over the years, and but I stay away from a lot of things because I'm not for the rigmarole. And for those who know what rigmarole is, you know what rigmarole is. I'm not for the debates. I'm not for the arguments. I'm not for the pointing the fingers and all that good stuff. I'm here to just figure out what's going on. And the only way to do that is to read a wide variety of people's opinions sometimes. And the book that I'm bringing today is brought by a man who spent his whole life questioning basically the system and being in it and teaching it and living the world that it's created for us. And so my book is Ruled by Secrecy by Jim Marrs. Okay, so before I start to talk about Ruled by Secrecy, I want to go back to the story of human rights.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for those of you who follow Mawulisatemple, you know that every year since 2016, we have offered a time of year where we dedicate a week in December to studying the human rights. And I thought it was important to bring this up just because of some of the things that we get to cover, or should I say that Jim Marrs covered in his book. And this is on the front page, the very first page of this booklet. And anybody who wants some of these booklets, I told you we can always get them out to you. Just let us know. It says an introduction. It says the basic human rights and freedoms to all which human beings are entitled, often held to include the right of life, liberty, freedom of thought and expression, and equality before the law. It goes on to say human rights are based on the principle of respect for the individual. Their fundamental assumption that each person is a moral and rational being who deserves to be treated with dignity. They are called human rights because they are universal. Whereas nations or specialized groups enjoy specific rights that apply to them, human rights apply to everyone. And I will say that if you don't have this little booklet or you've never really listened to more about this topic, go look at our old episodes on human rights. That week we did quite a few things in the years before then, but not just that, go and read for yourself. So just a background book to add to this in the many sources that Jim Marrs offers us here. So the Ruled by Secrecy book. It says an underground bestseller, the hidden history that connects the Trilateral Commission, the Freemasons, and the Great Pyramids. Now, just off of that title alone, we could talk about some of the thousands of other books that we talk about, but I brought that for a reason because of what's going on in the world today. Right now, we are in that time where we are dealing with wars and rumors of wars, for those who know. And so because of these things, a lot of the stuff in here applies, and I will be able to show you why. We remember Jim Marrs because he passed on. He ascended in 2017, born December 5th in Fort Worth, Texas. He was an American journalist for the New York Times, best-selling author of books and articles on a wide range of alleged cover-ups and conspiracies. Mars was a prominent figure in the JFK assassination conspiracy theories. And his book, 1989, Crossfire, was the source for Oliver Stone's movie in 1991, JFK. He subsequently wrote books asserting the existence of a government conspiracy regarding aliens, 9/11, telepathy, and secret societies. He began his career as a newspaper reporter, and he taught a class on the assassination of John F. Kennedy at the University of Texas in Arlington for 30 years. For 30 years, he talked about JFK. That's really, really interesting. And, and it says that he was also a member of the Scholars for 9/11 Truth. Did anybody know we had a organization named that? Scholars for the 9/11 Truth? Sounds interesting. Anyway, he did work as a reporter and a cartoonist and photographer back there in Texas. And in 1968, he took a position with the Fort Worth Telegram, where he served as a police reporter and general assignment reporter, covering stories locally in Europe and in the Middle East. And from 1969 to 1970, he currently served as a stateside United States Army Reserve Intelligence Unit as a translator of French. He could have helped you with that word. And German periodicals. And when the Army offered a remedy to a long-standing shoulder ailment prior to his scheduled mobilization or release him from his service obligation, he accepted the later. So they was like, oh, you got that bum shoulder? You let us take care of that bum shoulder. He was like, nah, I'll go home now. So I'm sure there was a reason why. But again, he covered topics like UFOs. From 92 to 95, he researched and completed a nonfiction book on top secret government program called the Stargate Project, involving psychic phenomena known as remote viewing. Only to have the program canceled as the book was going to press in 1995. In 1997, Mars investigated the UFOs, and he wrote a book called Alien Agenda, which was published by HarperCollins, and the paperback edition was released in 1998 and has been translated into several foreign languages. And it says Mars shows little discrimination, overemphasizing dubious phenomena like remote viewing and crop circles, and giving nearly equal weight to ludicrous pretenders like Billy Mayer, who claimed a close encounter with the Palladians, and sophisticated commentators like Jacques Vallée. Mars even denotes a chapter to theories that the moon itself may be a UFO, and he refuses to rule out the obvious frauds like the alien autopsy tapes and things of the such. So I could go on and on because there's quite a bit about him, and if you haven't looked him up, please feel free to. But let's get into Ruled by Secrecy.
Oh, let's get into it.
Okay, it says, in this astonishing book celebrated by reporter and News Times author, best-selling author Jim Marrs, painstakingly explores the world's most closely guarded secrets, exposing clandestine cabals and the power they have wielded throughout time. Defiantly rooting out the truth, he unearths the starting evidence that real movers and shakers covertly conclude to start and stop wars, manipulate stock markets, and interest rates. I think it might be some stuff going on with that right about now, Nick, is it not? I think we got some of that going on in the world right now.
Yes, we do.
And it says that they do all of this under the mindful auspices of the Council on Foreign Relations. Remember I talked about this?
Yep.
Okay. All right now, Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderbergs, the CIA, and even the Vatican. Didn't we just have some changes in the Vatican?
Yes, we did.
Just wondering about that too. It says this eye-opening result is an extraordinary synthesis of historical information, much of it long hidden from the public, that shed lights on the people organization that rule our lives. Disturbing, provocative, and utterly compelling, Ruled by Secrecy offers a singular worldview that may explain who we are, where we came from, and where we're going. Are those not my questions all the time?
Yep.
I'm like, who are we? What are we? Where are we? But Ruled by Secrecy, great. Let me just say, this is a reread for me. This book came out in 2000. Yes, I did get it when it came out. So we are celebrating 25 years with this information. And when I tell you it's just as relevant as it was the day that I picked it up, it is even more relevant now. I can say that there's not enough time in this day for us to discuss all the things I would like to bring out from this book. Anybody who has not read this book or has this book in their library as a reference book, I would suggest you do so. The book is broken into parts, and inside of each of those parts are a number of different chapters varied. So some parts have 3 chapters, some have 5, some have 12, some have 2. So again, it depends on what it is he's addressing, and he allows us to understand that while he's putting this stuff in here, this is merely scratching the surface of the things that he's bringing to the table. So let me just kind of go through some of the things that he has here. In the introduction, which I'll be reading some of that to you, he talks about the question of conspiracy, the rule by the few, and the view from the few. And he goes on to modern secret societies like the Trilateral Commission, Council on Foreign Relations, the Bilderbergs, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, the Rothschilds, the secrets of money and the Federal Reserve, empire building, Rose and Ruskin, the Skull and Bones, tax exemption foundations, alphabet agencies. I thought that was really cute. Alphabet agent. He was calling them alphabet agencies back in 2000. Wow. I think he was calling them that before then too, wasn't he?
More
he goes on to talk about other things like Iron Mountain, the Persian Gulf, Hitler, which, if you get into chapter 2, and I'll read a little bit from that chapter because I have some things highlighted here I wanted to share. I find it interesting that this is an area that is of this is super. Okay, I'm not sure which last name, but he's like, Mars. Yes, it is. Yeah. It is an interesting name. He talks about the wars here, and the reason I find that chapter 2, part 2, and part 3 very, very important is because of all the things that are going on right now tumultuously around the world. I know when I was young, we had no idea that while we were submerged, and I think we covered this before, while we were submerged in the things that were going on around us, many times we didn't realize it was whole wars and nations falling and rising all over the world. So because of these things, sometimes, your focus is so narrow because you can only work from the frame in which you're in. So it's just like what I was saying about that book that you just offered. It'd be interesting to see what they were writing about at the time they were in it versus being able to look back at it and say, oh, this and this and this happened, already. So he talks about the secret societies, the agitation that they use to sway the people one way or the other. So propaganda. He talks about Sir Francis Bacon and the New Atlantis, the Illuminati, Freemasonry, Rosicrucians, Knights of Templar, the Merovingians, the Road to Rome, the Kabbalah. He even goes into the Anunnaki, and then again he goes back to, in the end of this book, on page 390, Floods and Wars. And I want to say one of the reasons why I say this is one of the most important books to have in our library is because this man does not hesitate to add every reference that he pulled from. I really, really like that. And I guess that has to come from him being a news reporter, journalist, having to be able to quote all of it and cite all of his sources. You're a journalist. You went to school for journalism. Am I correct in that way that he has to be able to back up what he says, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so on the very first page, remember I told you about the introduction, right? It says, the world is governed by very different personages from what is imagined by those who are not behind the scenes. And that's a quote from Benjamin Disraeli, right? And he he starts the book with a warning. He says, be forewarned. If you are perfectly comfortable and satisfied with your own particular view of humankind, religion, history, and the world, read no further. If you truly believe that humanity has almost reached the peak of its scientific and spiritual fulfillment, and that the corporate-owned mass media is keeping you well informed, stop here. But if you are one of the millions who look at the daily news, scratch your head and wonder and ask what in the world is going on, or if you just entertain the questions of who we are, where we came from, and where we're going, you are in for a joyride. I like this man. I like this.
No, you do.
I like
no,
this.
You
do. I remember when I first picked this book up, I was like, I felt like I was holding on to something that was going to definitely get me in trouble. That's what I will say that. But again, the book goes on. He gives some more warnings in here. He starts in the same introduction on page 10 and talks about being ruled by the few. And he says, elites, not masses, govern America. Elites, not masses, govern America. The idea that a small, wealthy, ruling elite and oligarchy controls America appears to be well supported by facts. This is in 2000. The cycle of the rich getting richer while the poor get poorer has been accelerated since the 1960s. Through both the Republican and Democrat administrations, and gained momentum in the 1990s, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. And from 92 to 94, the wealthiest 5% share the nation income rose 14%, nearly twice of that of everyone else's, gaining the period of the previous 25 years. So that's why I wanted to mention it today, because it's been 25 years from the 25 years that he was mentioning. So 50 years, and we still kind of in the same spot. Interesting. At the beginning of every chapter here, he has quotes, and this one will be from Bill Moyers, and then I'll slow up a little bit here and just talk to you. It says, secrecy is freedom zealot's dream. The freedom zealot's dream, excuse me. Secrecy is the freedom zealot's dream of no watchman, no check the door, no accountant to check the books, no judge to check the law. The secret government has no constitution. The rules it follows are the rules it makes up.
That's funny.
So, you know, I read it a couple of times, and just as it was a tongue twister for me when I started it the way it's written is a little like a tongue twister. It says secrecy is the freedom zealot's dream. So all of us who dream of freedom, whatever that looks like for you, whether it be no watchman, like nobody looking over you, big brother, nobody to check the door, all this facial recognition technology and all this fingerprint, and you gotta have a real ID and all of this stuff. No accountant to check the books. Didn't he mention something about the tax-free information in the IRS and all the things like that? Yeah. And then it says no judge to check the law. It looks like people are really just doing what they want to do from state to state. It's really interesting if you pay attention.
Yes, it is.
And it says the secret government has no constitution. So right now, at a time where they're talking about reintroducing and going back into the Constitution and doing all these things, the secret government that actually rules the world has none, no way. And they only follow the rules that they make up. So when you ask yourself why you can't get ahead, why every time it seems like you figuring out the game and you think you winning and then the game rules change, that's why.
Okay.
That's why. Or should I say that's one of the possible reasons why that Mr. Mars offers. You know, I'm only reading from a book. I didn't write it, y'all. I didn't write it. So how do they usually do? They like all things said in this station are purely the views of the authors that we cover and not necessarily the people covering them. So we gotta cover ourselves, right?
Yep, disclaimers.
disclaimers. But I'm gonna slow up here for a second because you know, Nick, this is not a new topic to us. And he's talking about things that, you know, are from a variety of places, but usually end up in the same place, which is the treatment of man in the world and the loss of humanity of our people, and to whose benefit that is, and not only to whose benefit, what it looks like moving forward. I did want to say one thing that I found very interesting, and I thought you would as well, and all of my number people out there. Yesterday was Friday the 13th. We have been taught over the years that Friday the 13th is whatever we think it is. One of the things that he goes into this book is that a lot of things that were significant in history in pertaining to the running of this world and the secretness of the secret societies, etc., have been connected to Friday the 13th. And one of them, it says, this was the dawn of Friday the 13th, 1307. 1307. A date from that, the time onward brought a sinister connotation to any Friday the 13th. Authorities spread out over France quickly and rounded up all the Templars at hand. So what initially happened on that initial Friday the 13th that makes this such a day to be reckoned or feared, etc., was because the crushing of the Knights of Templar were going on at that time. And they were attempting to restore the ancient kings. And I guess people didn't like that, because that bloodline is supposed to trace back to entity or this thing called Jesus. So we're gonna leave that alone. We're gonna leave that alone. I'm gonna let you throw some questions, and then Nick and I'll pull up a couple more things, and then we'll be able to take any questions from our folk in the comments, or I'll just be able to share a little bit more and close us out.
Okay. All right. Oh, wow. Well, I'll just say that, yeah, this book is another one, just like New World Order. Ruled by Secrecy is a book that's been on my list to read for a long time, and I still haven't gotten around to it, but it's on the list. And I've also listened to a few interviews or videos of Jim Mars, some Jim Mars interviews, some Jim Mars talks on YouTube, years ago. And it's not to be confused with Tex Mars, because that was something I was wondering also, if they were the same person, because they both talk about similar or written about similar topics, or what would be quote unquote conspiracy theorists, that it's conspiracy theories, that's how they've been labeled by the mainstream. But yeah, it's definitely a book that I've been wanting to get to for a long time, amongst many others. But one of the last things you talked about was Friday the 13th and the number 13. And you know who else has written about not only Friday the 13th, but just the number 13 in general, is our friend who was a guest on here earlier in the year, Mr. Lloyd Strayhorn.
Yes.
So he's written about the number 13 and Friday the 13th in this book. And since we're talking about ruling by secrecy, and we're talking about the world governments in America, let me connect some dots here between what that Knights Templar, and with Friday the 13th and the number 13 here. And Lloyd has pointed this out on his program, his YouTube program as well, about how much and how heavily the United States vibrates and operates on that number 4. But specifically with the 13, he said the United States began with 13 colonies. First flag had 13 stars and stripes. First Navy had 13 ships. The Declaration of Independence was signed at 1300 Locust Street in Philadelphia. Thomas Jefferson, the major architect of this historic document, was born on the 13th of April, and April is the 4th month. There were 13 signers of the Declaration. Cornerstone of the first White House was laid on the 13th of October. United States sun sign is 13 degrees Cancer. Its rising sign is 13 degrees Scorpio. The motto, "Don't tread on me," has 13 letters. The White House has 13 letters. The Spirit of 76 has 13 letters. Neil Armstrong, the first man to land on the moon, has 13 letters in his name. And the biggest tax cut to date was signed on the 13th of August by President Reagan. Well, at the time of this publication of this book, Numbers and You, I'm not sure if it's changed since then, but yeah, I just wanted to,
and that touched everything that we said, right? It touched taxes, it touched law, it touched this. Mm-hmm. It's all connected. If Fee Flowers is still in the building, that's one of Fee Flowers' favorite sayings. It's all connected, all connected.
Yep, all connected.
So we definitely see that, and I thank you for sharing that. And I would love to have brother come back on and tell us some more about that, or even just cover that some more, because it's just very interesting, And I really found it. I think I found it interesting that it was Friday the 13th, 1307, and it says and spread out throughout France. Authorities spread out over France and quickly rounded up all the Templars in hand. And they accused them of all kinds of things, whether they could prove it or not. And they just kept them someplace. They just kept them someplace. I wanted to read this for one of our other folk who I was talking with about this, and they were talking about the Marines. They're writing a story, and they have some information in there, and I just wanted to put this out here. In part 2, the fingerprints of conspiracy, it says war is a racket. War is largely a matter of money. Bankers lend money to foreign countries, and when they cannot pay, the president sends the Marines in to get it. And this is by Marine Major General Smedley D. Butler, and his lifespan was between 1881 and 1940. 1940 it was when he ascended. And so he let us know that war was a racket and that it was about money, and that they were sent in to get that money when it couldn't be paid. And in this chapter, he talks about the $500 million of loans to Saddam, the Commodity Credit Corporation, $1 billion commitments, and things like that they knew couldn't be fulfilled, and it was done anyway with the intention. One of the things I found interesting was talking about the relationship between China and the United States. Again, we are right here in the United States, and unless that is your focus and area, you have no idea who the United States is talking with, who they are making deals with, what kind of deals are being made. We only know what we're being told. We only know we're being told, and then half of that is probably a half truth, according to Mr. Mars. And so it goes into trading with the enemy, and again, it talks about Korea, which I thought it's a small chapter on Korea, but it talks about Korea, and right after that, they talk about the rise of the Nazi cult. And if anyone were to read a chapter and fully understand how and why Hitler was created, right, and had to be made a part of the secret societies and secret groups operating around him, I think they find it interesting because they mention another book that we've talked about before, the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. And for all of the study folk out there, they've heard about the protocols, and in here he goes into mentioning them. And Protocol 1, it says the protocol plan will remain invisible until the moment which it has gained such strength that no cunning can any longer undermine it. Protocol 2, wars, so far as possible, should not result in territorial gains. And I'll read 3, and then I will stop reading these protocols because each protocol could be a lecture in itself. But Protocol 3, I think, is important, or should I say Protocol 4? And it says the minds of the masses must be diverted towards industry and trade. Thus, all the nations will be swallowed up in the pursuit of gain and will not take note of their common foe. So, again, those protocols, if you've never read them, Protocols of Zion, the Elders of Zion, Get those. Check them out. You know, because Protocol 20 called for the general taxation and the lawful confiscation of all sums of every kind for the regulation and the circulation of the state. So yeah, I could walk in and take your stuff if it's going to benefit me. If I say it's going to benefit me, I could walk in and I could take it. What you mean it's yours? Is it yours? Who are you? Where are you? Who do you belong to? and yeah, like I said, this book is a gem. It goes into the Masonic plots. It talks about I mean, so many things that I can't even begin to truly share it all. But it says that it does talk about in Ancient Mysteries Part 5 that there's nothing is truly new. It has all been done before, right? All been done before, said before. And then it asks, what can you point to that is new? And how did you know it didn't exist long ages ago? We don't remember what happened in those former times. In the future generations, no one will remember what we have done back here. And that's Ecclesiastes 1, 9 through 11. I thought that was really interesting too, because it says the Bible without question is the most influential book ever produced. You know, and it says it was written by men with secrets to conceal. I'm sorry. That's just like... It was written by people. It was written by people with secrets to conceal. I mean, this is his thought on this. And he goes into the pharaohs and the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greek, the Romans. Talks about flying serpents and dragons. You know, the story of mankind's reptilian past. All roads lead to Sumer. So again, those Sumerians and what they've done in the Indus Valley, the Mayans. Yeah. But I'm gonna go to the last page before sources, right?
Okay.
And it says, I have to start the sentence on the page before. I'm sorry. This stuff just give me a tickle, man. Like not a tickle ha ha, but in a tickle ha ha. It says true innovators like Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, and Bill Gates. How did those names get together? Like, yeah, Alexander Graham Bell.
That's the telephone guy,
and
right?
Thomas Edison.
That's the light bulb guy, right?
But then we talk Bill Gates. Like, of all the people you could have threw in the mix, I'm sure it could have been somebody else we mentioned. But it says these three men did not conform their thinking to conventional wisdom. And it says, like these men and many more like them, each individual makes his or her own destiny. We are creative beings and would like to create the best possible world for ourselves. But this is impossible when the creative process is based on incomplete or erroneous information designed to instill fear and dissension. There are more people today who truly, sincerely desire peace and brotherhood than ever before. But unfortunately, those who strive for power and control usually achieve it, and they want to keep it, and they will use brute force. And this is, but the time of brute force has passed. Today, they can control 6 billion members of the human community only through deceit and secrecy. And once you found your own heartfelt truth That truth must be shared. So to lift a certain secrecy which contributes to the ignorance, fear, and confusion of our time, and create a new spirit of human tolerance and togetherness. At MaWu Lisa Temple, we thrive and strive to uplift fallen humanity, and this is why. Humanity fell a long time ago. The fact even that this had to be written, I said I would go back to this human rights thing, and then I'll shut it on down, because I want to talk about when they felt the need to do this Declaration of Human Rights. We talked about this before. They had to do a Bill of Rights in 1791, and then they did the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 48. So we have to ask again, what was going on in 1948? And your book kind of talks about that time. You said, what was going on then? This is what was going on then. Humanity was falling even further. And like I said, he lists source here. Honestly, that if you sat down and read his sources, you would be able to read for at least, I don't know, 50 years, as long as it's been since he started this voyage. And I'll close when he has an index here, pointing to all of the information in this book. Like I said, this book is a reference book. This book is a gem. It was $15 when it came out. And it was worth every penny. It was worth every penny, because here we are 25 years later. I'm still able to refer to it, share it, and not only that, look at the headlines of today and see these very things playing out. People always talk about the psychics like Nostradamus and all these others. We had people like Jim Mars right here in our face reporting for a newspaper, telling us exactly what was going on, and nobody wanted to believe it. And sometimes you just have to ask yourself, do people turn a blind eye to everything that's going on in the world because they don't believe it, or just because they don't believe that there's anything they can do about it? So I'll close with that one. Are we going to continue to allow the rule to be by secrecy? Or are we going to accept that we've been told everything that's going on, and it's for us to decide whether we are going to take part in that, or we are going to be counter to that and bring back humanity?
Great questions, great reflection questions there to think about, meditate on, for sure. And I had to confirm this. I did it while you were talking. I had to look up the publication dates. So you already shared that Rule by Secrecy was published in 1990. Now I went back to your previous offering, New World Order. That too was published in 1990. And then I looked up the one that I had, Behold a Pale Horse. That one was published in 1991. So all these works were published around the same time. They all came out around the same time, discussing similar topics. The protocols, that's in Behold a Pale Horse. He printed the protocols in Behold a Pale Horse. And these books all came out at the same time. Very, very interesting.
Listen, to say the least, it deserves it. To say the least, it deserves some looking at. Asking some questions. You know what I mean? Just really asking some questions. And I'll be honest with you. The 90s was an interesting time, because when things started happening quickly. As we transitioned from the late 80s into the 90s, all they could talk about was the conspiracies and things that was going to happen in 99. So you had people really, really shook and running and trying to figure out what was going on. How do we prepare for Y2K? After that, there's not going to be no lights. We ain't going to have no water. We're going to be post-apocalyptic, and every man for himself. and all these things. And I mean, what were they telling us in these books? That's how they control you. They control you with the fear of what you think of. Like we done fed you enough information. So when we say the end of the world, this is what you think of. This is what you see. When we say post-apocalyptic, something comes up in everybody's mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we got Hunger Games, we got Maze Runners, we got Children of Corn. Children of Corn came before. That's what I said. Be nice to the babies. Be nice to the babies. Be nice to the robots.
Yeah, right.
Because look, according to them, it can look like anything. But you know, I just think it's interesting that you know, he mentioned there that they will not let this power go. They will go out fighting. They will go out swinging. They will go down swinging. You know, but most people they know won't even bother because they made it look so big that you can't get from underneath it. And maybe it is. You know, maybe that's the whole idea in the first place. But one thing that I say is that and maybe this goes into my Libra rising. How is that fair? It's different if you tell me the rules and we play the game, but what did it tell us? They're changing the rules as we go along. They'll never set it up so you can win. So you have to decide that you've won. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You basically have to decide what your winning looks like. Because it'll never be a time, according to those who have written about this for decades, that there won't be some greedy people somewhere at the root of this trying to control everything with fear, propaganda, you know, money, manipulating things with money. Again, even to say in itself, all of it is an illusion, but yet and still people still buy into it. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot to be said for that. And I really, you know, that's one of those books where as I was preparing to bring it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember why I was reading this. And then I went on to say, I remember why I stopped reading this. Because see, you know, for all of you viewers who haven't really followed Nick and I or don't know us from our other platforms, one thing we do is we are very transparent. We don't try to sit here and pretend that we know everything, that we done figured it all out or anything like that. And not only that, we have no problem admitting the things that still baffle us. You know, it you know, and I've always made it clear that I will always be just floored by the fact that there are people who wake up every day thinking about how to do something that is so outside of anything many of us could ever think of, and they do this daily, and there's groups of them, and they get around and they figure out how to use this information to manipulate and hurt people, and not only that, gain frivolous things like material wealth and gain. So it's just really interesting, and it's a book that, you know, we talked about this too, buying an extra copy of a book. This is a book that I buy another copy of just to keep it and put it away, because it'll never not be relevant as far as I can see. Because here we are 25 after its publication, but 50 years after he was writing about it in news articles as a journalist. So, you know, he taught the assassination of JFK for 30 years. Oliver Stone based his award-winning film on this man's work. So he couldn't have been the clown that some people try to make him out to be, or some weirdo that was wearing a tin hat. You know, there's some substance there. And if we would but take time, we'd find that if we wanted to, because again, some people don't want to know, ignorance is bliss. You know, if you would take time, you would see that the cards are stacked against us. But it don't mean we can't win, because we define what wins just like they define the rules. And that's what Mr. Mars said. You know, you know. But anything that you have for me, Nick? Any comments from our community?
Oh man, well, you know, Fee Flowers is blown and is just loving, just loving this offering that you bought. I'm telling you.
All right, all right.
Yeah, but I want to go back to what we were discussing about Jim Mars and him being a journalist and having to have those receipts and do that research and have those sources. Yes, the books are listed in the description right now, and the Amazon links too. If you want to buy them from Amazon, they're right there in the description. And I have Roo's scrolling across the screen right now, and then I could put mine back up, you know, as we close out. But so the research that goes into putting out this information, I've always, that's something that I've always wondered about, especially when it comes from this perspective, right? So when I get my hands on this book, I will be very interested in to see what the sources are, you know, that's so heavily packed in this book. I want to see, you know, I want to see the list. I can't wait to see what he brought out, you know, the examples of some of the sources. And then I also wonder about the process of finding some of these sources too, because I can imagine some of this information is classified and not available to the general public. So I'm always curious about that. I'm always curious about whistleblowers and people that feed the information to the truth tellers, and you know, the people that are writing the books and writing the articles and putting the videos out there. So I'll just be very interested in this process and who we spoke to, and you know, who's providing him with information and how he got his information. So that's just a you know, a little comment there, not just for him, but for him as well as the others who've put this information out.
You know, that's a great point, Nick. I've always, you know, been a skeptical person, just by nature. And I remember thinking to myself one time, is you're only as good as the information that go in. So if I feed you some lies and make them sound like truth, you got it from me, and I told you, but does that make it true? You know, we have to remember, you know, operations that have gone on around us that we've seen even in our own communities, where propaganda has been used to misguide the people. So, you know, how do you know the sources that you're being given are even true? One of the things that you mentioned where he got some of his information from, I noticed that what I found interesting was he used some things that I don't think we would think about. He talked about Disney. Mm-hmm. It says Disney version of history, Jonathan Vacken and John Whalen, 50 greatest conspiracies of all time, 1995. He mentions Tragedy and Hope Suppressed, The Creature from Jekyll Island, 1994. He goes on and he mentions other things like No Coincidence or Stupidity by Gary Allen, None Dare to Call It Conspiracy from 1971. I'll say this, you know, he pulled from a lot of resources. And you got to think, we didn't have the internet like we have it now. Do you know how much work this took? Like, do you know how hard, do you know how much he had to believe in what he was saying? Like, he was risking his life.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reason why he didn't take that surgery and he said, nah, I'm going to just leave. Because he realized that he was talking quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I wonder how many years it took him, how long it took him to put this all together and publish the book.
You know, I tell you like this, just the information he has on the Trilateral Commission is just wow. You know, it talks about national sovereignty. You hear people running around talking about that right now. You know, we mentioned Ronald Reagan, you know, in the Council of the Soviet Press. And, you know, I've always said that I found it interesting that a lot of these people work together. I mean, they talk, they work together, they make deals, you know. All right, I'll turn my eye to this if you turn your eye to that. You know, let's do this thing together. So now I got something on you and you got something on me. Like, if you pay attention, it's wicked. It's wicked and it's wickedly formed. You know, and I'll go on to say that I personally, while I have done my research and done my digging over the years, the last 20 some odd years, I can't say sometimes that I know more than I knew when I started. And that's the honest truth. That's the honest truth. That's one of the reasons why I don't really go into politics a lot, because this web is so intricate, and the muck and might go so deep that you would literally have to unearth the earth to find the origin of the evil that is here. You know, like, you know what I mean? Who decided that, you know what? You see all these trees over here and this creek right here, that all belong to me now. Wait, what? Says who?
Crazy.
Oh, well, it's a bunch of us, and it's a few of y'all, and we said now y'all gotta listen to us. Wait, what? And if you don't, we'll kill you, we'll rape your children, you know, we'll take your money because we prove we can do that. We'll make you work for us, we'll make you do all the things. And then we'll tax you and make you pay us fear money. Because isn't that what taxes are? Don't beat me up. Here's 25 cents, Mr. Bully. You know? I just remember that's how bullies work when I was in school. You give them your milk money, they leave you alone.
Right.
The day you don't want to give up your milk money, you gonna have to knuckle up, you know? He does go in to talk about the New World Order, as you can only imagine. And again, the trading with the enemy part was really interesting too, because it just talks about a lot of things we just don't know. We just, you know, that's one of the things that they keep us so distracted in the now and in the immediate history right before and right after us, or the future right in front of us. It's just enough to keep you where you don't ask more questions. How can you? You're trying to get through right now. You know what I mean? You're trying to get through right now. They got all the fear going on. They got $20 eggs that's contaminated. Lettuce you can't eat. Tomatoes you can't eat. You know, like, you got cows with mad cow diseases, chickens with foreheads. It's just like, and I'm supposed to be worried about what? Who doing secret stuff? Where? How? What? You know what I mean? You have to pick your battle here. But at the end of the day, what did he say? If all people that truly want to see peace as their way truly just stopped for 1 minute and thought about who was their common enemy, we could have been stopped the madness. Who is the common enemy? This has nothing to do with some of the things that we think it has to do with, and more to do with the fact that you just have people in this world who feel like they deserve all the things and everybody else deserves nothing, or at least needs to be subject to them because they have more. That's just what it looks like. And again, I don't pretend to understand all the intricacies of what's going on behind these, curtains and walls and all that. And to be honest, sometimes I don't even know if I want to know. And that's one of the things he mentioned too, is like, once you dig deep enough, you be like, you know what? This ain't getting nothing but worse. This is not getting better. So let me just leave that alone, And so the fact that it keeps recycling itself, and like it says, nothing is new under the sun, and we keep watching the same thing over and over again. My question, I think, is when are we going to get tired of seeing the same thing happen over and over again? And as a person born on Groundhog's Day, when are we going to stop groundhogging, as somebody says to me all the time? So when we going to stop groundhogging? I don't know, my love. I don't know. But here we are, and we are offering you Ruled by Secrecy, Jim Mars. If you don't have it, get it. If you don't want to read it right now, if it's too heavy, put it on the shelf, because it's definitely a reference book that you can use for a number of subjects and topics that you may want to address as these times of uncertainty continue to move us forward. And definitely believe that they talk about the food situation as well. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we all really need to be paying attention to. The food, the air, the water, because it won't be long before they say, hey, you're breathing my air over there. I'm gonna need you to give me 50 cents for that. What do you mean you can't hold your breath longer than 12 minutes? But anyway, that is Ruled by Secrecy. That's my offering. So yeah, Nick, if you got any more questions for me, any thoughts, anybody got any questions or thoughts? But if not, that is it for me today.
All right. Listen, I think that was more than enough.
Man, look, I told you, I was looking at it saying, wow, why am I bringing this book?
And you're like, oh yeah, that's why. Now I'm reminded.
No, I remember why I put it down. That was literally the first thing I thought about, is why I ended up putting it down, because it makes you think a lot of thoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it really does. It makes you ask a lot of questions, and unless you have people around you open-minded enough to even begin to address some of those questions, like he said, if you just ask, who are we and where we from, that right there is enough to really send you, to really send you, and you'll be on a mission for quite some time. For all of my people that have been on missions for 25 years and more. Still have no idea who we are, where we are, what we're doing. So yeah. And oh yeah, how did I end up on this earth? Am I on earth? Where am I? Yeah. Is this even real? Oh, what is real? So yeah, we get into a lot of places in that book. And it can, for those who I will say this, if you are prone to falling down rabbit holes, as many of us are, we can all be accused of going too far down the rabbit hole, whatever that looks like. But remembering that this is going on regardless, keep your mind and your space safe, that would be what I would offer, because it is enough to spin you out to think that there's a whole secret clandestine world happening and you just here trying to pay your rent and play Uno. That's all, like you really, all I want is to be able to walk to the store, and, without the acid rain pulling my skin off, you know what I'm saying? But again, what people would do to keep control is quite horrifying.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Well, to go back to my offering, I brought to you all this week A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines. Some fiction, novel, just to switch it up a little bit. I try to have a little rotation going on when I come to UnRead, and I try not to bring the same type of book for consecutive shows. So I haven't brought fiction for a while. So I brought A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest Gaines. So that was my offering for this week. And like I mentioned, I'm pretty sure I will put it on the list for the summertime, since I've been putting it off for so long. But that was my offering for this week. And we'll be back. Our next episode, we're off next week. So we'll be back on the 28th, it looks like. June 28th.
Yes.
For our Surprise Me week.
Yes,
so
yes,
we got to think about that. Yeah, so we got to think about what we're going to bring for that one.
Absolutely. I agree. I don't know. We've been doing some pretty good Surprise Me, so I'm excited. Yeah. I'm excited for sure.
I am too. Well, guess go ahead and close this thing out then, So we'll be back. Like I just said, we'll be back on the 28th for our Surprise Me week. And Roo, do you got anything coming up between now and then that the people should know about? I'm trying to remember, but
you know what, we had a couple of things going on. We were, summer is almost here, as you said. We're creeping up on summer, and in the summer we always go back into the healing chambers. It's a great time to go back into the healing chambers during summer. We had those long hours and access to the sun, which was one of our greatest healing tools. So we'll be back with that on Thursday nights at 7. Very interesting topics. Sometimes there'll be pre-recorded episodes from some of the people we work with in the community, people who are offering works in the field of healing. And again, that is mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial. We handle all things in the chambers because they all affect our overall optimal health. So outside of that, there's a couple other things in the work we're going to keep under wraps right now, only because, Most High knows best how things move and change. But listen, here for it, always here to give daily reminders and offerings for the people as they come along. So if you don't follow MaWu Lisa Temple, please do over on Instagram at Mawulisatemple1. And as always, you can email us with anything, any topics, Mawulisatemple@gmail.com. And here on YouTube, Mawulisa 4610. And Nick has all of that information, contact information in the bottom. And thank you again to those who is your first time. Thank you for those who are coming back. I look forward to seeing you all again, to interacting with you all. And Nick, I'm going to let you go ahead because you have something coming up that I can't wait to be a part of. For those in the area, get down to see Nick. It's about to go down. So I thank you, and I'll let you give us a nice little close out here. Nick, tell people where they can find you and what you got going on.
All right. Yeah, like I was saying at the beginning of the show, June is a busy month. Next week on the 18th, I will be if you don't follow me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram. I'll be live with Monica Williams on Behind the Grind on IG Live. So follow me and Mr. Westbrooks and tune into that. That's 5:30 p.m. Eastern time, if I remember correctly. And then the next day on the 19th, I will be on Numeralytics and Queen Bee TV doing a presentation. So if you're not in the area to come to the in-person event that's on Sunday, June 22nd in Newark, New Jersey, you can get a little preview of what I'll be sharing with the people on the 19th. You can watch virtually on the 19th if you're not able to make it in person on the 22nd. But what I'll be presenting on both the 19th and the 22nd, virtually and in person respectively, the topic is the numerology of Juneteenth. So I'll be going into a little bit of history on Juneteenth, as well as what the frequency and what the energy was during that time in 1865, and also what is the frequency and what's the energy of the holiday, the observation, the celebration known as Juneteenth in the present day in 2025, and both from a numerical perspective. So that's what I have coming up next week, going into the following week. So if you're interested in attending either virtually or in person any of those events, the 18th, the 19th, or the 22nd, you can reach out to me and I will get you the information. But with that being said, you have been watching another episode of UnRead Book Review with Nick and Roo. We thank you for your support and hanging out with us as we do our favorite thing to do, is to read and talk about books. And we'll see you. Yep. And we'll see you on the next episode on the 28th. If I don't see you before then, next week. And take care. Peace.
Peace.